Kill Bill is the fourth film from Quentin Tarantino. After the success of Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown, expectations are high. But just what can we expect? The Times, Film First, gets exclusive answers from the man himself.
Kill Bill is a revenge movie. Revenge movies cross all genres. That plot's been in kung fu movies, samurai movies, spaghetti westerns, secret agent movies, detective movies, cop movies, whatever. Hamlet's a revenge story. And the basic idea of a revenge movie is you have a lead character, a bunch of jokers, screw them up really badly, all right, beat the hell out of them, kill a bunch of people around them, either leave them for dead because they don't mean, because they think they've killed them, or they're so inconsequential you can just screw them, who cares, all right? And then that person coming back, all right, and then tracking all those people down one by one and making them wish they never did. It's as simple and as complicated as that.
In Kill Bill, the character on a roaring rampage of revenge is the bride, played by Uma Thurman.
The character of the bride came about basically out of my desire to work with Uma again. All right, the actual initial germ or spark started while we were doing Pulp Fiction. It's like we were really having this major artistic love affair going on, and I loved working with her. She loved working with me. We wanted to do it again, and then so at some point during the course of the movie, I came up with the idea of doing a movie starring her, where she would play this, the deadliest woman in the world, all right? And she'd be this assassin, and she'd be screwed over like in a spaghetti western or a kung fu movie. So that was the spark, and that was the germ that just has been gestating ever since then.
Tarantino and Uma Thurman developed much of the character of the movie together on the set of Pulp Fiction.
All through Pulp Fiction, we were talking about the character, all right? Like, for instance, I knew how it was going to start. It was going to start with, her just having been beat up and she's going to get shot. So I describe it to her, and we've been, we'll talk about it every day, just some little thing about it. As we're doing Pulp Fiction, we're like, oh, when we do Kill Bill, da-da-da-da, and when we do Kill Bill, da-da-da-da, all right? And then maybe 4 days after telling her my idea of the opening, which is exactly the way the opening is now with, her on the ground and, and Bill wiping her face and his little monologue and the bullet to the head, and then fourth film by Quentin Tarantino. She goes, what about if the first time you see the character, what if I'm in a wedding dress? I was like, ooh. And that's when the bride was born.
It's been nearly 10 years since Pulp Fiction, because the Kill Bill script had an unusual development.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
I was in the Stockholm Film Festival showing Pulp, and I got a burst of inspiration and wrote about 30 pages of the Kill Bill script, all in handwritten. I called Harvey up on the phone late at night and read him these pages and go, that's great. Anyway, I was like, Kozlovsky, it's fantastic. And so, the movie doesn't look so much like Kozlovsky now. But what happened, though, was I came back. I had to come back to do 4 rooms. Conceivably, if I hadn't have had to come back to do 4 rooms, I might have at least gotten halfway through the script then in Stockholm, because I was really on a roll. But then after 4 rooms, me and Robert decided to go right into Dusk Till Dawn. And I always designed that Kill Bill would be an exploitation movie. It would be a full-on lurid exploitation film experience. And, well, that's kind of what Dusk Till Dawn was. I didn't really want to do 2 of those back-to-back. So when I decided to go to Dusk Till Dawn because I was ready to go, I put Kill Bill aside and just know I would come back to it, not the next movie, but the movie after that. That's what my thinking was. But as time went on, I did Jackie Brown and started thinking about doing a World War II script. So I was writing that for a couple years, and ended up writing a couple World War II movies actually. But it was always this thing between me and Uma, this Kill Bill film. But I hadn't seen Uma in a couple years, and I bumped into her at a party, and the first thing she says, so when are we going to do Kill Bill, huh? You keep talking about that. What's up? It made me dig out those first 30 pages of Kill Bill, and I read it, and it's just like, this is pretty darn cool. You know what? I don't think I can wait all that time to do this war film before I work with Uma again. I think, you know what? Let me put the war film on hold. I've got it ready to go. I can do it afterwards, and nothing wrong with having a stockpile of material. That's all good. That's how I started my career. And then I just wanted to work with Uma again. So from that point on, I just said, okay, it's Kill Bill time.
Part of the reason for the delay could be because after Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown, Tarantino feels that Kill Bill is a stylistic departure for him.
I actually feel that my films take place in, when it comes to my original stuff, there's 2 Quentin universes that they can take place in. All right. And Jackie Brown I exclude from this because that's not an original script. But when it comes to my original scripts, to me the Quentin universe you've seen so far, for me as a director, it has all the fun of a movie, all the fun of a genre movie, but is actually in some ways more realistic than even real life itself, and actually taking real life and throwing it into the genre mix and the genre conventions and watching the havoc that real life actually plays when you actually take genre conventions and attach them to a real life clock. All right? And that's the fun of that. You know, again, it's something I've never done, but just to give you the super quick analogy of it is, cops are after a guy, and he's running, and he pulls over a car with a gun, and he carjacks him, and he yanks him out of the car, and he jumps in just as the cops are get there, and it's a stick, and he doesn't drive a stick. All right, you know, just that, you know, stuff like that. That's the world that Pulp Fiction takes place in. That's the world Reservoir Dogs takes place in. That's the world my original script for True Romance takes place in. All right, but my other universe is a movie universe, and that is not about real life. This is a movie. All right, it's every aspect of that. All right, I mean, I couldn't have more unreality distancing devices in Kill Bill. You know, there's never a moment you're watching Kill Bill and you don't know you're watching a movie. I'm all good with that. All right, this is my first movie universe that I've ever directed. The best way to describe this movie universe, okay, after like doing the big description and now to boil it down, is when the characters in True Romance and Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, when they go to the movies, these are the movies they see.
If Kill Bill is a movie, then it certainly draws inspiration from a huge body of work, close to Tarantino's heart.
You could almost make an analogy that there is almost a hip-hop equivalent, you know, to the ways this is sampled and that's sampled and this sampled, but doing it in a cinematic way. But this is really a complete trip to all the different grindhouse genres, basically, if we're talking about England, okay, the cinema that played at the Prince Charles, all right, for 20 years, at midnight, triple features and quadruple features, all right. This is that kind of stuff, is the Prince Charles still open?
Oh yes.
Okay, well. It'll be good. The day that Kill Bill plays at the Prince Charles, all right, will be the day that Kill Bill truly comes home when it comes to England. I'm a huge fan of subgenres, and this is a movie not of genre. This is a movie of subgenres. Because if you're going to just break it down, the genre this falls into the most all throughout it is revenge movie genre. If you had a video store and every week you highlighted a new genre movie, all right, Kill Bill would be in the revenge week, all right. But inside of that, all right, there's all my weird obsessions and stuff, Shaw Brothers kung fu films, all right, Japanese samurai movies, and, not the Kurosawa crap either, all right, or Sword of Doom or, that highbrow crap, all right. I'm talking about, Japanese pop samurai movies like the Zatoichi films, the Baby Cart from Hell movies, all right. One of the most influential movies on the film is the second film of the Baby Cart from Hell series, Baby Cart at the River Styx. That was fantastic. It blew me away when I was a kid and I saw it. A mix of those genres, Japanese Yakuza movies, spaghetti westerns, done modern day style. All right, there's even, in the chick coolness, all right, of the chicks. There even has a, they're not secret Asians, but it has a bit of that vibe. There's comic books, all right, both American style and manga style. Out of Japan, all right? There's Japanese anime in it. There's Japanese anime in it, and some of the live action feels like Japanese anime, all right? So you have all these things together. Throw in there also a Brian De Palma sequence, all right? Throw in there also, a sequence that's reminiscent of Italian giallo thrillers, all right? And you can just keep going from there.
It isn't just other people's films that have influenced Kill Bill. Tarantino fans have seen the bride's weapon of choice, a samurai sword, before.
I never do fanboy humor, all right, where, it's like you see in a lot of first-time horror filmmakers, Detective Romero, come in here, all right? I was just talking to Inspector Craven, and he said that Commissioner Hitchcock is pissed off, all right? I don't do that kind of crap, all right? But I'll do subtextual jokes that, if you're really plugged in, maybe you might get it, all right? So in that aspect, when it came to Bruce Willis in Pulp Fiction, what cinema character is he going to be? And he takes up the baseball bat. Well, that's Walking Tall. That's Buford Pusser in Walking Tall. Is he going to be Walking Tall? No, he puts it down. And he picks up the chainsaw, all right? Is it going to be Leatherface going down there kicking butt? No. And then he puts around, and when he turns around and sees the samurai sword, which we haven't seen yet, he disregards the chainsaw because that's the weapon. All right, no, he's going to be Zatoichi. He's going to be Sonny Chiba when he goes, and he truly was being Sonny Chiba. I actually showed them an episode of a Japanese TV show that Sonny Chiba used to do. The English title is called Shadow Warriors. The Japanese title is Kage no Gunda. And I actually showed him that episode, all right, so he can know how he was supposed to go down there with the sword. I even showed when Sonny kills some guy. I actually showed the guy who played Maynard who gets killed. This is how you die in a Japanese movie. Like, oh! But the concept of that is weapon, boom, the weapon of honor. If I'm going to go down there and save my enemy, it'll be with the weapon of honor.
Tarantino hasn't just taken inspiration from his favourite kung fu flicks. Legendary stars Sonny Chiba and David Carradine have major roles in Kill Bill.
I've always loved David Carradine. I've always been a big fan of his. And, to me, I think the TV show Kung Fu is one of the greatest shows in the history of television, all right? The concept that American television could try to do a show based on Eastern philosophy and get it right is so unfathomable, all right, that how it happened, I still don't know, all right? I don't think it had a flickering birthday candle chance without David Carradine. I mean, it was his performance that made that show work, that weird combination that he has. And there's also something wonderful about David Carradine of the wonderful, gigantic array of directors that he's worked with. He literally has worked with some of the greatest directors in the history of cinema and definitely some of the worst, all right? But, his performance is never affected by it. He's just doing his thing. But the thing is, when I was writing Bill, around the time that I was writing Kill Bill, I actually started reading his autobiography, and not in conjunction with it, just reading it. It was called Endless Highway. And it is literally one of the best autobiographies I've ever read in my life. It really is. It's so beautifully written, all right? And in reading it, I became fascinated with this man, all right? I mean, I was already a fan, but this took me so deep inside him. And that's when I started reading that book, is when I started thinking about the idea, he could be an excellent Bill. He could be a terrific Bill. So that was the germ of when I started putting 2 and 2 together and coming out with 4.
For the first time, Tarantino has had an original score written, created by fellow kung fu fanatic RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan.
One of the fantastic things about working with RZA, and it was just great, was the fact that after feeling like I'd been kind of by myself in making this movie to one degree or another, because it's easy for me to deal with all this stuff because I grew up watching it. But I had to school everybody else to one degree or another to simply so we could just have free association conversations, which never quite happened. All right. RZA, on the other hand, has seen every movie I have, so we could just like, well, you remember that theme that they used in the priest sequence in Invincible Armor? Oh, yeah, that could be really good. And, I remember in Two Champions of Death, that sound, and go, that would be fantastic. Then what about just like a sound effect? Oh, that's a great idea. Having original music is a very new departure for me. Now, most of the music you hear in the movie is not original, though. I have a huge soundtrack collection, all right, and I've been collecting that since I was a kid. And the way that I would always dive in and find songs and music to be my score. Here, I dove into soundtrack albums to find the score and pull, my favorite cut off of this one album, my favorite cut off of that one album. Some of those music cues are far more interesting than the actual movies they were written for. I tried to use soundtrack score music, especially the hot cuts that I'm using. I tried to use those the way I use surf music as score music in Pulp Fiction. And hopefully, I turned on a whole lot of people into surf music who had never listened to it before. Hopefully I can turn people on to some old original soundtrack albums in the same way. But consequently, what happens because of that is this movie, Kill Bill, is actually scored by some of the greatest composers in the history of movies. You have Bernard Herrmann right over here. You have Ennio Morricone right here. You have Isaac Hayes right here. You have Quincy Jones right over there. So it just keeps, these are the greatest composers ever, and they all did my movie.
Kill Bill has the highest body count of any Tarantino film so far. Does he anticipate trouble with the censor?
You are working inside of certain guidelines, all right, when it comes to the MPAA and the American rating system that, like, say, a Japanese director like Takashi Miike doesn't have any worries about. But it's nothing that should leave you keep handcuffs on you about, because the thing about it is, you can make your movie rough and everything, and you just go for it, all right? And you will have to do a nip and tuck situation with the MPAA, but I actually have a really good relationship with them. They have a very hard job, and I understand it. They're not out there to censor filmmakers per se. They do have a responsibility to the parents of America, all right? But they understand their responsibility to us too, even though the other one is most important to them. And you can find a balance with them. You can find a work, but the trick of that is to work with them, not say, you goddamn Nazis are screwing me up, all right? I'm tired of being censored, all right? Well, no one responds well to that kind of attitude, all right? And by the way, just so it can be told, they are definitely the best when it comes out there, when it comes to all the options out there, because without the MPA, you'd have every jerkwater county in the United States coming up with their own obscenity laws, and that would be nothing for anybody.
The one person who isn't insisting on any cuts is Miramax studio boss Harvey Weinstein. As a result, Kill Bill is being released in an unprecedented 2 volumes.
I'm all down with it. As soon as Harvey Weinstein brought it up, the concept of doing that, it was like the last month of shooting, I was like, that sounds great. Look, obviously we were thinking in terms of time. That was a big dilemma about it. And it came out basically because Harvey just didn't want me to cut any of the movie, because I think it's all terrific. I don't want you to have to lose anything. You've got a big canvas, and that canvas, it's not a canvas of indulgence. It's a large vision, and it needs all that. We can make the vision punier, but why should we, all right? But you know what? It's not just that, all right? If it was just that, it would be easy to say. But there's more to it than that, and the more to it than that is this, is I don't think when it comes to the average moviegoer, I'm not talking about the film fanatics. I'm not talking about the movie junkies. All right, I'm talking about the average moviegoer. I don't think after Kill Bill Volume 1 is over, the average person in this first view of the movie wants to see another 90 minutes. I think you're ready. I think you're ready to go home. Actually, I don't think you're ready to go home. I think you're ready to go to a bar with whoever you saw it with and have a couple drinks and talk about it. And I think that's the thing. Now, I'm a movie junkie. All right, and I equate movies like Kill Bill, the way it works, with either sex in terms of an orgasmic experience, or drugs, as opposed to, in terms of the high that you experience. All right. Movie junkies could handle 3 hours of Kill Bill. I think the average moviegoer would overdose with 3 hours of Kill Bill.
And when it comes to the average moviegoer, every country is different.
The thing about the UK that makes it stand out compared to the US is it all comes back down to the very, very beginning. It comes back to Reservoir Dogs, all right? Because Reservoir Dogs was loved by film fans and like college students and people like that in the U.S. It was sold as it was an art house genre film, all right? And it was treated like an art house film, and it played art houses, and did what it was supposed to do as far as that was concerned, all right? And that was it. And I was like a film darling, all right, for that set. All right, that year it came out in America. But the way it was released in England was completely different. When it came to England, all right, I did all the press for London and stuff, and it opened first in London, not everywhere else. But they weren't like, oh, here's this art house darling. It's like, this is the movie in America that's got everybody talking. This is the most notorious movie in America, all right? So it opened wide in London. It opened big. All right, you definitely had it playing in more theaters in London than it played in Los Angeles. All right, so then it opens and it becomes the #1 movie in London. After its first weekend, all right, they sent me back the next week to England and now do regional press. I land in the airplane, and it was like, during that time, it was like Reservoir Dogs had within a week, had filled the pop culture requirements of a film when it came to a country was concerned. For a certain amount of time, it was like a British stand-up comedian almost couldn't do a set unless they had a Reservoir Dogs joke. And one of the reasons is the British movies that I've always really, really loved were like the British crime thrillers of the 70s that they didn't make anymore. All right. By that time, it was like Long Good Friday was the last really British crime film by the time I'd come out with Reservoir Dogs. I mean, Mona Lisa was, but you know what I'm trying to say. That was kind of one. But, the last, it wasn't like the 70s one. And those were tough movies, man. Michael Caine in Get Carter, Richard Burton in The Villain. All right. One of my very, very favorites was Douglas Hickok's movie, Sitting Target with Oliver Reed. I love those movies. Brighton Rock. All right, those were cool movies. And like, and the British gangsters in those were fantastic. They were deadly. I mean, they were so scary. And I just made the point that I'm a big fan of that cinema. And the thing is, I think Reservoir Dogs is a good throwback to that cinema. That could have been done with a bunch of yobs. Just a bunch of lads. Reservoir Dogs has easily been done with just a whole British cast, all right, just doing it, all right? And then people in England really did respond to that. They saw that. And that's when they started showing it to Prince Charles, and guys would show up at midnight dressed in black suits with squirt guns, and I just couldn't have been more honored. It was just great. But I did realize, though, after landing in London, the difference between your movie being an art house darling and your movie being the #1 movie in London. I was like, this is different. I already thought, I thought in America this was as good as it gets. I couldn't have been happier. This is as good as it gets.